Operation End Times, the Vikings, To and Fro, Part 2. I'm your Jedi disciple for Jesus, Ben Hillestead. Alright, that's Rapture by Blonde. That was done in the 70s. We're just going to kind of continue right on. I was talking about Odin. You know, there's all these stories that the Vikings were the first to get to the Americas, that they went on down into Mexico, and they actually built them some of their cities. Quetzalcoatl could be Odin. But it was a blonde-haired, blue-eyed white guy. And that's why when Cortez and the Spanish pulled on up to Mexico, the Aztecs thought it was the return of their god Odin, and they welcomed them into the city, and they lived to regret it because the Spaniards then killed them all for the gold. Daniel 12:14 talks about how in the end days they will wander to and fro, and knowledge shall increase. You know, what is that saying? You know, is it that in the end days there's a whole bunch of vikings? You know? So, we find some things, you know, in the Bible. The word assembly is used 49 times. It also means the multitude. It could also mean a crew member. Congregation is used 364 times in 331 verses. And this is important because congregations, assemblies, it all pertains to churches. Cities pertain to bodies of people. It's all groupings of people. And yet, the individual person is called a vessel, which is like a boat. So life is like a journey. When you come out of your mom's womb, you're a vessel, you're a boat, beginning your journey through life, and you're going to wander to and fro until you find God and let Him blow into your sails and move your boat across the waters. Now, waters are spiritual. The flood with Noah, the waters from above met the waters from below. But you can find Bible verse after Bible verse. One would be 2 Samuel 22, verse 5. 22, that's the master architect, Jesus Christ. But 22, verse 5, it says, well, actually, we'll start in verse 22, verse 4. I will call on the Lord who is worthy to be praised, so shall I be saved from my enemies. 2 Samuel 22, verse 5. When the waves of death compass me and the floods of ungodly men make me afraid. So it's using watery language, waves and the depths and the flood covering you, but it's actually just talking about evilness, death, and wicked men, not actual waters. Now, I'm going to tell you, if the earth floods, I think it's flooded many times, you know. Could it have flooded completely at one time? Maybe. You know, probably, definitely. God then made the rainbow to say, I'll never completely flood the earth. But He didn't say I'm going to stop flooding, because there's been flooding ever since. You know, just not complete flooding. I don't know if it even makes a difference. But the waters we're talking about, especially at this particular end of the ages, this transitory event, are spiritual waters, my friends. And the darkness that God sees when He looks upon the earth is not dark physical waters. You know, that flight, Malaysia Flight 370, they said went down in the Indian Ocean in some really deep waters, 2 miles down in dark waters. But that's not the dark waters we're talking about. The dark waters we're talking about is wickedness, but guess what? The depths is a female, the waters of the earth, it's also symbolic of wisdom. Wisdom comes out of darkness. You know, that's the light of God shining forth. But in 2 Samuel, I've been telling you this event, there's a switch being thrown, and the trigger is a call for help. So right here in 2 Samuel 22, verse 26, it says, the sorrows of hell compass me about, the snares of death prevented me. And then it says, in my distress I called upon the Lord, and I cried to my God, and He did hear my voice out of His temple, and my cry did enter into His ears. And behold, the earth shook and trembled, and the foundations of heaven moved and shook, because He was wroth. And there went up smoke out of His nostrils like a dragon, and fire out of His mouth, the dragon. and coals were kindled by it. He bowed the heavens also and came down, and darkness was under his feet. And once again, I've shown you that picture, of the Vikings, on the horizon, the dragon ships, I don't have all my drawings lined up, but here's the heavens bowing on the horizon of the ocean and the dragon ships, Now, what I'm going to tell you is, all cultures, all societies, even in Israel and in Babylon, all those gods, semi-gods, they all mirrored the truth. They all do. Satan, when he comes, he doesn't come as a devil in red with horns and a tail. Now, spiritually, if you're describing Satan, you would say he's a serpent. He's red with horns and a tail, because you're trying to give that person a mental picture of evilness. But when Satan actually approaches you, he's not red with horns. He looks like a normal dude, or he might have blonde hair and blue eyes and be radiating light, and he's just going to fool you into thinking he's good. So thus, everything has two perceptions. And that's what we see when we're looking at blondes and Vikings, is on one hand, they're painted as evil. Blondness also represents the whore, But are blondes all whores? No. Blonde people were kings and queens. Does that mean all blondes are our kings and queens? No, it does not. But what blondness and blue eyes represents is the ego, the rising up of pride. Because when you got blonde hair, you stand out like a sore thumb. So you can either be ashamed of it, or you learn to just walk around saying, yeah, I'm blonde, what about it? So it's kind of a pride and an ego thing, So that's where I'm thinking it. Just like red hair represents kind of like a wickedness. But that doesn't mean people with red hair or with blonde hair are wicked. That's a choice each of us makes individually in our walk, in the way of life, the path, our journey, when we're on the boat. If we grab the rudder, then we're the ones steering it left or right. If you start walking with God, with the Christ head, then your hands are off the rudder. It's Jesus steering the boat, and it's God putting the wind in your sails. All right, waves. Wave, Hebrew word 5130. Nuf means to move to and fro. They are like clouds without water, moving across the waters. It comes from there's also a word for waves, which is Hebrew word 4867, mishbar. The root is Hebrews 766:5, shabar, which means to break in pieces, to birth forth, to crush, to wreck. Waves means breaking. And you know what? You'll find that in this end time event, even in the Noah event, that's the destruction, the crushing of the serpent's head. The people that didn't make it into the ark because they couldn't see or hear God, but the waves will crush you, it's part of the destruction. But waves are mentioned 26 times in 26 verses, and 5 times in 5 verses. It's this, how many times and how many verses, I think, is the secret code, man, because time and time again I see it kind of showing up. But a wave is mentioned 152 times and 145 times, and it's kind of like 153 is that magic number. So add Jesus Christ, you got the 153, and lo and behold, Jesus walked on the water and he calmed the raging storm. But Jonah was cast into the deep as the Lord passed over. Jonah 2 verse 3. The deep is Hebrews 15:30. Yeah, wave also means a heap of stones. Death. Heap of stones over dead bodies. The word is gal, Hebrews 15:30. And it comes from the root galal, Galilee. Jesus came from Galilee. But galal means to roll away the stones from the tomb. But a wave is a heap of stones, and that's where you are. If you're a 3D carnal mortal man, that's where some of them are, and that's where maybe some will be, is you're crushed with the waves, the stones. And in the Sea of Galilee is a huge pile of stones, and nobody knows exactly what it's there, but it's in the shape of a pyramid. And there's a huge stone in the Baltic Sea. Also, a word for the depths of the sea is metzola. Hebrews 46. 46 is the number of chromosomes, 88. There's that 8 and that 8 again. It's mentioned 11 times in 11 verses. But Psalms 68:22, it says, my people shall rise up from Bashan, the fruitful, from the depths. Job 41:31, like a pot of boiling water, the people from the depths. And you know, in Isaiah it talks about the evil pot boiling in the north. Isaiah 33 verse 21 talks about ships, talks about the distant shore, which is the heavenly, the north, where it's a land of rivers and streams, but no boats and no oars can get there. You know, no boat made by man can get there. So, you know, the only boat that's going to get you there is a spiritual boat. H590, which is, I think, the word for vessel, oni, means one. A fleet of ships, a vessel, oh no, yeah, and then or, which is H7885, there's that 88 again, shayit, it's in Isaiah 28 verse 15, it means scourge, you know, and that's what happens when men are in a boat, somebody's cracking the whip going, row! See, now I'll tell you what, that was the Phoenician ships. The Viking ships, they didn't have a whip cracking because those men wanted to be on board and they yearned to row. And that is part of the difference in the reflection and the perspective of distortion versus the actual reality of the Vikings. You know, once again, when you're looking at the Vikings, like on Wikipedia, the verbiage is constantly of distortion. You know, where it talks about what people perceived versus what they actually were. The word Viking didn't even come into existence until 1960. And like I said, Stan Lee brought out the Thor comic book in 1962, which was the year I was born, which is another amazing piece of synchronicity. But it's kind of funny. In today's society, the two things you can make fun of are Christians and Vikings. You know, like the credit card commercials, you can make Vikings look as stupid as you want them to look, you know, but you make that kind of fun of any other race or religion and you're going to be some kind of racist or a bigot. But blonde, blue-eyed people, they're open game, and Vikings, they're open game, and Christians. You know, the tribe of Dan, the lost tribe of Dan, the 300-year reign of the Vikings from 790 to 1066. You know, why has history been manipulated and distorted? What is it they're covering up? What is the role of blonde-haired people or Vikings? In the Bible, north mentioned 153 times, and what we know is directly north is Mount Hermon, Damascus, the Phoenicians. Right below Mount Hermon is these two tribes of women, the city of Dan. The lands of Manasseh, those who forget, is right below Mount Hermon, but north of Jerusalem. Then you get the Canaanites, the Philistines, those wandering to and fro, the tribe of Dan, all people that were wayfarers with boats that headed out across the Mediterranean to America, to Europe. And I say also there was a land progression, a migration of blonde-haired people that moved on up to the Baltic Sea. I'm going to throw forth that the sons of God, either good or bad, some of them, that's where the blonde and the blue-eyedness came from, you know, but for some reason there was an unnatural concentration of blonde people around the Baltic Sea. And you can then see how blonde, or blond in Germany, which means to mix, how blonde-haired people have been mixing with all other races for thousands of years. We can see this tie-in through the patriarchal line of queen bees and blonde-haired women, and Noah, who was something different because he scared the hell out of his own father, who thought he was a descendant of the Nephilim, which means he was already open that somehow somebody else was the father or mother and not him, you know. But it's all connected up. It's all based on a genetic recessive gene, and you know, we're entering a period where there's going to be this singularity event, the meeting of waters, heaven above to the waters below, an energy wave, and a possible healing of both women and men. And is it tied to the blondness? And do the Vikings play a crucial role in what's about to unfold in the end time events? Hey, It's Operation End Times. Stay with me. God bless you for watching.